sources of income. Dreyfus Tax-Exempt Bond Fund. Dreyfus Intermediate Tax-Exempt Bond Fund. Dreyfus Money Market Tax-Exempt Fund. Again, no federal tax.
Right. In effect, income is up 60% in the top tax bracket.
No wonder you're king of tax-exempt bond funds. Shall we have lunch?
Thriftway knows what you want. There is a place that knows exactly what you need in every way and every single brand. And every aisle is filled with promises we keep. It's bringing you the very best we can. You can take for granted how dependability. Thriftway knows what you want.
From Sunoco comes the highest octane under the sun, Sunoco Ultra. At 93.5, it's the highest octane of all major premiums. No other gasoline can match it. Drive your car to the height of performance with Sunoco 93.5 Ultra, the highest octane under the sun.
Jason Robards in Melvin and Howard, Friday night. Action News, Delaware Valley's leading news program, with Don Tollefson, Dave Roberts, and Jim Gardner.
A huge display of fireworks lights up the sky in the city where America's freedom was born. And with the fireworks, the Ben Franklin Bridge bathed in light to celebrate the 200th birthday of the United States Constitution. Thursday night, and the big story on Action News tonight is the magnificent finale to Philadelphia's We the People Birthday Bash. Tonight's events cap off a day that started with a massive parade past Independence Hall, where the Constitution was born, the same place where later in the day, bells rang out across the city to mark the moment when the document was signed. But right now, let's go back to Penn's Landing Live and Karen Friedman for the latest on tonight's hoopla. Karen?
Jim, it was absolutely spectacular here, and I have to tell you, the rain held off until this very minute. We are looking at below me, if you can even see it, just an absolute mass of people. They came here for the activities tonight. First, let's begin with the boats. Boats, hundreds and hundreds of boats out on the Delaware River, all gathering to take a look at what was going on at Penn's Landing tonight. They wanted to see the lighting. Look at that. The bell, the lights. In fact, it reminds me just a little bit of what went on in New York last summer at the Statue of Liberty's birthday, only a little bit of a smaller scale. Just spectacular lighting, rain and all. What a pretty sight it was. And then, of course, what a lot of people have been waiting for, the lighting of the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. Now, I am told it took 596 bulbs to light the bridge, costing about $55,000 a year just to maintain it, and they're trying to raise a lot of money to pay for it by selling bulbs. So far, $1.8 million in the kitty. Now, speaking of money, the absolute spectacular fireworks display cost about $150,000. I imagine that set off a few fireworks. The show was put on by two of the world's biggest firms, one that provided the skylighting for President Reagan's second inaugural, and the other did the displays for Louis XVI wedding. It took 18 minutes, set to music, 7,500 shells. Okay, Okay, we have just lost our light out here, but what you're looking at from the live action cam is just people trying to leave. I have a feeling it's going to take a lot of people, maybe half the night, to get home. But at any rate, a day that began with rain and so many people and so many festivities has just turned out absolutely spectacular. Doesn't seem to be any problems whatsoever down here, just a lot of very happy, smiling faces and a lot of people, Jim, saying that they are very proud today and tonight to be in Philadelphia. I'm Karen Freeman, live on the Action Cam at Penn's Landing.
Thank you, Karen. A lot of fun tonight, but Constitution Day began with a solemn reminder of what it took to get where we are today. Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger joined Governor Bob Casey and Major General Gerald Sager of the Pennsylvania National Guard at a special ceremony early this morning. The trio laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown Revolutionary War hero in Washington Square. The group trying to get the square made part of the National Park Service saw some signs of optimism in Weinberger's words today. The Defense Secretary said he would welcome such a move and called Washington Square as hallowed a grave as Gettysburg and Arlington. A big part of the Constitution Day celebration was the 2-mile-long We the People parade. The first half of the extravaganza featured a variety of performers, including a number of traditional fire and drum units. Those fife and drum units, big marching bands of the more modern variety, also made their way past Independence Hall. And one of the highlights was this unusual and amusing briefcase drill team. Of course, there were dozens of colorful floats rolling past the crowds. Not even the rain could dampen the spirits of the thousands of spectators who came out to watch the grand parade as it wound its way past Independence Hall and through Center City. After the bands and floats came the Parade of America's People. It was a chance for folks from all walks of life to take part in the We the People celebration. Many of the ethnic groups which helped make America what it is today took part, like the Irish, the Poles, and the Sons of Italy, with a well-known member, mayoral candidate Frank Rizzo. Parade host Dave Roberts was definitely impressed by a group of colorful Ukrainian dancers today.
I've always wanted to be able to do that, or that, or any of that.
Not a chance, David. Some of the groups came with a political message. Stop the arms race, for instance. Other groups came just for fun. Virtually every type of American was represented, from the young, like the Girl Scouts, to the old, like this senior fireman. It was a real kaleidoscope of the American scene. 5 members of a group called Philadelphia Pledge of Resistance were arrested during the Constitution's bicentennial celebration. Police say the 5 crossed one barricade and tried to cross another at Independence Mall. And that's when U.S. Marshals hauled them away. The group said it wanted to give President Reagan a list of homeless people who have died in the United States, as well as a list of those killed in the war in Nicaragua. In between the parades and the protests, President Reagan took center stage at Independence Hall to praise the Founding Fathers and the fruits of their labors 200 years ago. Reagan noted that the Constitution was born from a nation in strife, but a nation that rose above politics to create a document that changed the world. And the president paraphrased George Washington in saying that America still faces the same challenge today it faced 200 years ago.
The guiding hand of Providence did not create this new nation of America for ourselves alone, but for a higher cause, the preservation and extension of the sacred fire of human liberty. This is America's solemn duty.
After the president's remarks, thousands of red, white, and blue balloons floated into the gray skies, and the celebration went on. And from that appearance, the president traveled a short distance to the Franklin Plaza Hotel for a fundraising speech for Pennsylvania Senator John Hines. In his 14-minute speech, Reagan praised Republicans, bashed the Democrats, and got in a plug for his nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court.
In the case of Judge Bork, the American people, I'm certain, are finding him to be intelligent, prudent, firm believer in the Constitution, and a strong defender of individual rights. I predict he will be confirmed by the Senate, and over his career in the Supreme Court, he will make great contributions to the American way of life.
The president made 3 more predictions for 1988, that a Republican will win the presidency, that John Hines will be reelected, and that the GOP will regain control of the United States Senate. Today's ceremonies also included a reaffirmation of the Constitution. Former Chief Justice Warren Burger, who turned 80 today, accepted the signatures of more than 6 million school children. Then at exactly 4 o'clock, Burger tugged on a rope to ring a replica of the Liberty Bell. The 5-minute bell-ringing ceremony marked the precise time the Constitution was signed 2 centuries ago. It was an eye-opening event for most, but not necessarily for all. They are certainly in a party mood along Penn's Landing tonight for day 1 of a 4-day Great American Picnic, and that's where Action News reporter David Henry is now live. David?
Well, Jim, I am just about out of breath after that spectacular fireworks display and the lighting of the Ben Franklin Bridge. The hundreds of thousands of people who gathered here at Penn's Landing for the Great American People were definitely in a mood to cut loose and blow off a lot of steam. We, the people who love to party. Get the feeling people were enjoying themselves tonight? We are the people who love to dance and have a good time. The Great American Picnic is truly a melting pot of people and cultures. We, the people who've made this country what it is.
American people. I belong to United States now.
We, the people who enjoy good food, some of it uniquely American, and some brought here from other lands.
We're the people who enjoy America, and we teach, and we have a good time.
And when we've had too much of a good time, we're the people who catch a little shut-eye wherever we can, or just sit and watch the world go by.
Just sitting around, walking, just having a nice time.
You're having a good time?
Very good time, thank you.
Okay, you think we should have more parties like this?
Definitely.
100 years is too long to wait, huh?
I agree.
And I think you would find a lot of people around here who would agree that we could use a party like this every summer. In fact, let's get their review of the proceedings. What do you folks think of the fireworks?
It was live!
All right. I think that's a definite yes vote. This is David Henry reporting live from Penn's Landing. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you, David. This has been a glittering, star-spangled evening in more than one regard. While they were lighting up Penn's Landing, they were filling the Civic Center with the sounds of an entertainment gala.
Road of human rights in Philadelphia.
The gala evening opened with stirring performances in Convention Hall by, among others, Marilyn McCoo and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and Philadelphia's own Patti LaBelle.
What is America to me?
There were dramatic presentations on many constitutional cases of the past by some of Hollywood's finest. After the show, the elite 1,600 dignitaries from the audience moved over to the gala dinner in Pennsylvania Hall, which had never looked so good. Former Chief Justice Warren Burger and former Pennsylvania Governor Dick Thornburg. U.S. Attorney General Ed Meese lauding the efforts of We the People Chief Willard Rouse.
He's our real host.
Wonderful.
And Hollywood's Walter Matthau mugging for cameras with an old friend.
Okay, here we are in front of the RKO-LB in Brooklyn.
Also in this crowd of luminaries tonight, at least 100 representatives from 4 nations, all rubbing shoulders now with city and state officials, dining on roast filet of beef and Chesapeake crab. Jim, back live now at Pennsylvania Hall. The party's over. It went pretty quickly. They didn't have a lot of speeches, just 13 toasts to the 13 original states. Those went off smoothly. The party broke off about 15 minutes ago. Went very smoothly tonight. I talked to Mayor Good and Willard Rouse. They thought the entire day glittered despite the rain, including tonight's wrap-up ceremony. That's the story from here in West Philadelphia. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News, reporting live. Jim?
Thank you, Vernon. Even though this has been the big day for the We the People celebration, it doesn't mean it is the end of the celebration. The Great American Picnic will continue tomorrow when all the floats we saw in today's parade will be on display. The picnic at Penn's Landing will be in progress through Sunday. And tomorrow, the entire Pennsylvania State Legislature will gather at the Constitution Pavilion to recreate the day 200 years ago when they met to hear one of the first official readings of the new Constitution signed the day before. It will be the first time the legislature has met in joint session in Philadelphia since the nation's 200th birthday in 1976. 200 people are going to have a very special reason for remembering the birthday of the Constitution. They are natives of the Soviet Union, of Egypt, Turkey, South Korea, from all around the globe. But tonight, they are all Americans, taking the oath of citizenship earlier today before the Phillies game at Veterans Stadium. Speaking of new citizens, as near as anyone can figure, this is the area's first constitutional bicentennial baby. Benjamin James Zellner came into the world at just 2 minutes after 4 o'clock this afternoon, 2 minutes after the moment when the Constitution turned 200. He is the 8-pound, 8-ounce son of Barbara and Ted Zellner of Rose Park, Delaware County. Ben was born at Pennsylvania Hospital, the nation's first, founded by another Ben, Mr. Franklin. Not only that, but one of the nurses taking care of little Ben is named, believe it or not, Betsy Ross. Still to come on Action News tonight, Pope John Paul II is in San Francisco for what could be the most controversial stop of his U.S. tour. Kathy Gandolfo will have a live report. And presidential candidate Joseph Biden tries to dig himself out of a campaign controversy. Don Tollefson has the sports, and Dave Roberts the AccuWeather forecast when Action News continues.
Macy's has savings designed with you in mind. A $2,000 Chesterfield leather sofa, now $999. And made Chinese 100% wool rugs, $399. 50% off a huge assortment of bedding. And Magnavox's 20-inch TV with remote, only $299. Thursday through Saturday at all Macy's in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
We're Macy's, and we're a part of your life. Life goes by too quickly to let it get away. Don't wait until tomorrow. Enjoy it all today. Don't shortchange yourself. There's so much you can do. Carry cash stream. Cash stream works for you.
Weichert Realtors has a great idea for home sellers who want a top-selling price fast. Weichert guarantees to advertise your home every week until it's sold. Once you decide to sell, Weichert's guaranteed advertising doesn't stop until you get results. We sell more homes than any other independent realtor, and we'll get you a top-selling price fast. Call or stop by your local Weichert office for details on guaranteed weekly advertising.
You do not have to spend much time on a country road before you become familiar with the primary law of two-lane driving. How fast your car may go is important, but not nearly as important as how fast it goes around somebody else's. Before you buy another car, be sure you see the Sterling.
It could be a critical blow to Joe Biden. The Delaware senator and presidential hopeful admitted today that he committed plagiarism in law school. At an extraordinary Capitol Hill news conference, Biden released records from Syracuse University that detailed the incident 23 years ago. Biden said, quote, "I did something very stupid." But he dismissed the furor over his failure to attribute words of others in his speeches as much ado about nothing.
The notion that every thought or notion or idea you'd have to go back and find and attribute to someone, I think is, quite frankly, ludicrous.
His opponents in the Democratic race for president sounded sympathetic.
He tried to handle that situation in his own way, and I respect him for it.
But I think the fundamental question is he a person of basic integrity, and he is.
Biden's blunder is the topic of ABC News' Nightline with Ted Koppel tonight, which airs immediately following this broadcast. Biden's Senate Judiciary Committee held hearings on Robert Bork for a third day today. Today, President Reagan's nominee to the High Court told senators that his record shows he would rule in favor of minorities and women. Today's most intense moment came when Senator Edward Kennedy accused Bork of supporting an all-powerful presidency.
You broke the law in Watergate when you obeyed President Nixon and fired Archibald Cox, and you testified that court-appointed special prosecutors are unconstitutional. You wrote that the War Powers Act was probably unconstitutional. You seem to feel that when it comes to the relation between Congress and the President, instead of checks and balances, the President has a blank check and the Congress exerts no balance at all.
Senator Kennedy, I must say, I think those are most unfair characterizations of my views.
Bork's temper flared for the first time as he denied breaking any laws and firing Watergate Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox. Federal officials say they have nabbed a suspected terrorist. Attorney General Edwin Meese says a Lebanese man has been charged with hijacking a Jordanian jet in Beirut 2.5 years ago. Meese says the suspect was arrested in international waters in the Mediterranean and brought to Washington to be arraigned. A new report has blasted the Navy and Marines for what it calls a campaign of sexual harassment against servicewomen. The Pentagon study says that in one case, the captain of one Navy ship offered to sell female sailors to Koreans and force others into sexual relationships. In Washington today, the House passed a measure officially apologizing for one of the more serious blots on the Constitution in the last 200 years. The Civil Liberties Act is an apology to hundreds of Japanese Americans who were interned in camps during the Second World War. The bill also offers to pay them compensation for what it calls their lost liberties. The vote on the measure was 243 to 141 and came after 4 hours of emotional debate. The Senate is expected to pass a similar bill next week, but President Reagan has threatened to veto it. The United States and the Soviet Union have reached an agreement in principle to ban intermediate-range nuclear missiles. The accord comes after 9 hours of talks in Washington between Secretary of State Shultz and Soviet Foreign Minister Edward Shevardnadze. And President Reagan will make an official announcement about all this in the morning. This negative note to tonight's positive news from Washington. The Pentagon says the a U.S. soldier was wounded in East Germany by a group of Soviet soldiers. The soldier was touring with a liaison team when their vehicle was hit 7 times by bullets. The Pentagon calls this an inexcusable action. A former prisoner in the Soviet Union, well-known dissident Natan Sharansky, was in the Delaware Valley tonight. Sharansky visited Congregation Bethel in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, to lead a rally for Soviet Jewry. Speaking to reporters before addressing the congregation, Sharansky praised the United States Constitution on its 200th birthday and detailed what he sees as the fundamental difference between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
The law is something that protects individual from possible arbitrariness of the authority. It's code which guarantees you your rights. In the Soviet Union, law is something that belongs to the authority. It's an instrument by which authority operates for individual. That's why violation of law by authority is something what is absurd.
The former Anatoly Sharansky was finally freed from the Soviet Union last year after 11 years of harassment and imprisonment. It was theater with a message this evening at the Judge Lewis Quadrangle at Independence Mall. Members of the Pledge of Resistance group spoke out against U.S. aid to the Nicaraguan Contras as they put on a play chronicling the ordeal of Benjamin Linder, the American volunteer recently killed by Contra forces. The players said they were celebrating the bicentennial of the Constitution by putting their right to dissent into action. Pope John Paul II is wrapping up his California visit tonight as he begins to wind down his American tour. After spending 2 days in Los Angeles, the Pontiff today headed up the California coast to Monterey and then to San Francisco. And that's where Action News reporter Kathy Gandolfo is tonight. And Kathy joins us live to run down the Pope's day in the city by the bay. Kathy?
Jim, that's right. At this hour, the Pontiff is meeting with nuns and priests at St. Mary's Cathedral here in San Francisco. It has been another long, grueling day for the 67-year-old Pontiff, and yet he hasn't strayed from his schedule one bit. The Pope's plane, dubbed Shepherd 1, touched down in California's beautiful Monterey Peninsula at 9:40 Pacific Time, 12:40 Philadelphia time. The Pontiff went immediately to an automobile racetrack in this farming community, which had been converted into a mass site. During the mass celebrated here on a hillside in Monterey, John Paul's theme was agriculture. He spoke of the financial difficulties facing American farmers and farm workers alike, and expressed concern that in this land of plenty, there are still pangs of hunger. After the liturgy, John Paul traveled to the Carmel Mission, resting place of Father Junipero Serra, founder of the California Missions. Inside the church, hundreds gathered, including Carmel's famous mayor, actor Clint Eastwood. Then it was on to San Francisco, the 8th stop on the 9-city tour. The Pope stopped at the Golden Gate Bridge and then went to the Mission Dolores, where he addressed a gathering of the elderly people and AIDS victims. He told them they are loved by God without distinction.
He loves those of you who are sick, those who are suffering from AIDS and from AIDS-related complex. He loves the relatives and friends of the sick and those who care for them.
In the shadow of the Mission Dolores, hundreds of people demonstrated against the church's position on just about everything.
including birth control, abortion, and gay rights.
If he really wants to choose life, why doesn't he and the rest of the church support us while we're living and healthy?
Women have a right to choose over their own bodies. Nun, priests, and Pope impersonators filled the city's Mission District. It had been expected that the biggest protests, especially from gay and women's groups, would come in San Francisco, and the city by the Bay held true to those predictions. Well, Jim, among the protesters that I spoke with today, some actually dislike the Pope because of the church's teachings. Others, however, are saddened by the church's teachings. They feel that they love the Catholic religion, and yet they are rejected by the church. Now, tomorrow, the Pope will participate with some more events here in San Francisco, and then it will be on to Detroit, and that will be the last city on the American Papal Tour. Reporting live on the Action Cam from San Francisco, I'm Kathy Gandolfo. Jim?
Kathy, I'm curious to know just a couple of your thoughts. Before the Pope came to the United States, much was made of his expected confrontation, really, with the American Catholic priesthood over those controversial issues such as women in the priesthood, the role of women in the priesthood, and the celibacy issue, although it hasn't been since the beginning of his journey that we have heard a great deal about that. Are those issues that have now been obscured by the other issues, or is that still a continuing dialogue?
Jim, it is a continuing dialogue to a degree. Of course, nobody really expected the Pope to alter his opinions in any way on any of those social issues, and that has not happened. If anything, yesterday morning when he met with the bishops of the church, he reiterated the church's teachings, opposing abortion, opposing artificial birth control, opposing women priests. So there has been no changes. No one really expected those changes. The dialogue between bishops of the church and the parishioners, I'm sure, will continue, but nobody expects any immediate changes to be made in the Catholic Church.
I understand that. In Miami, at his first stop, of course, there was a group of some 750 priests who very forthrightly presented the Pope with their complaints about the Pope's doctrine and the Pope's teaching, the conservative doctrine of the Catholic Church. Have there been other clerics along the way who have taken the opportunity to continue that protest?
Jim, not to any great degree. Of course, there are some who tend to be more liberal, certainly more liberal than the pontiff, and they would like to continue the dialogue, as I said, with their parishioners. But for the most part, they have been fairly silenced here. When the Pope is in town, there's a tendency for them to not shake the boat, rock the boat, if you would, and they tend to pretty much downplay any differences within the church.
Kathy, thank you, and we'll see you in Detroit. Philadelphia Archbishop John Cardinal Kroll will be meeting with Pope John Paul II tomorrow in Detroit. That is the final stop on the papal U.S. tour. Kroll left the Pope in Los Angeles to return to Philadelphia today for the constitutional activities. Kroll says the Pope has been very well received and that any negatives have been fabricated by the news media.
The reaction absolutely throws a serious doubt about the criteria that has been used by some people in the media about this conflict, controversy, everything else.
The Archbishop used an invocation he delivered at a GOP fundraiser attended by President Reagan at the Franklin Plaza Hotel today to give his own Constitutional Day speech. Kroll pitched for bringing prayer back to the public schools as he questioned whether the First Amendment prohibits that practice.
You'll find big savings store-wide during Thriftway's big sale. Convenient Love's Deluxe Diapers, all sizes, only $9.99. Save big on Bounty Paper Towels, Jumbo Roll, just 69 cents. And Folgers Coffee, all grinds, 1 pound bag, only $1.89. This week at all independently owned and operated Thriftway supermarkets.
Summer's over, but the savings continue during Thrift Drug September sale. Fiberall wafers, the natural laxative, only $3.29. Fiberall chewable tablets, $3.39. And Fiberall powder, just $4.99. Save on soothing Lanacaine medication, only $1.99 after manufacturer's rebate. There's extra savings on Treasury brand products, too. Look for this ad. The savings continue during Thrift Drug September sale. Thrift Drug, the one you can trust.
If you've waited to buy a new car, you owe it to yourself to see your Pontiac pacesetters and see why Pontiac 6000 may be your best value. Pontiac 6000 outsold every import in its class last year. Even our prices are exciting, starting at under $10,500. Now, final 87 shipments mean big year-end discounts. Plus, you can get 1.9% financing or up to $700 cash back on Pontiac 6000 and all other new Pontiacs in stock for a limited time. So hurry to your Pontiac pacesetters. If you wait, you may be too late.
You should see this woman in a one-woman performance. Oh, first of all, she has great legs. And you're 40.
That's all?
And you've won the Oscar. And such a wonderful list of film credits. You're so believable. You're such a wonderful actress. You're a triple threat.
Donahue, 9 a.m. tomorrow on Channel 6.
In other news tonight, the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission ruled today that Bell of Pennsylvania should not have its rates cut. The PUC rejected recommendations from its own staff and consumer groups and said that Bell's rates are reasonable and need not be reduced. Under the rejected plan, the average phone customer's bill would have dropped about 25 or 30 cents a month. Two pieces of good news tonight from the automobile industry. Ford Motor Company and the United Auto Workers reached a tentative agreement on a new 3-year contract covering 104,000 workers. The two sides hammered out the agreement in bargaining that has gone virtually around the clock since Monday. And in Canada, auto workers reached a tentative pact with Chrysler to end a strike that began Monday. And Don, one program note before we get to sports. If you're expecting to see Nightline at 11:30, obviously you're not. It's 11:32. But we have an expanded edition of Action News tonight because of all the Constitution Day activities. Nightline will be shown in full beginning at 11:45. And what a full day it was for the Philadelphia Phillies as they now go on to play the Expos.
Yeah, and in keeping with the wonderful celebration all day long, the Phillies got a victory as well before their road trip, Jim. Absolutely right. And now that the Phillies have won today and put some more space between themselves and the 5th-place Chicago Cubs, they'll get another shot at spoiling things for the leaders, as Jim mentioned. They'll be in Montreal for 3 starting tomorrow night, and then it's 2 games in St. Louis. This afternoon at the Vet, in beating the Cubs, the Phils had but 3 hits, but 2 of them were biggies. Steve Jeltz had a 2-run double that bounced all over the place as the Phillies jumped out of the gate early on. The Cubs contributed 10 bases on balls, but the other key hit right here was another double, this one from Juan Samuel. Phils had an early 4-0 lead. They hung on to win 4-3 as Steve Bedrosian there got the last out and recorded his major league leading 38th save. Checking the scoreboard, Montreal has beaten the Mets, Pirates beating the Cardinals. There's a rain delay there. There's rain delays all over tonight. Cincinnati won the first of 2 in L.A. Dodgers up 2-0 in the second inning of the second game. How about the American League? Well, Toronto and New York, they're in a rain delay with the Blue Jays up in the 6th inning. California beating Kansas City in the 8th. Seattle and Chicago tied in the 9th inning. The NFL strike deadline is only 5 days away, and there was some more bad news today. The Players Association has turned down the owner's offer of federal mediation. The two sides are still miles apart, and without that mediation, those miles may lengthen even further. Now, the players claim that the owner's call for a mediator was politicking and gamesmanship. Meanwhile, the Eagles are a very happy football team tonight because they have Chris Carter under contract. The former All-American wide receiver at Ohio State, number 2 in this footage, has signed a 4-year contract. Of course, he was selected in that special draft after losing his college eligibility for taking money from an agent. Well, what could be the last Eagles game for quite a while comes up Sunday at the Vet. That, of course, if there would be an NFL strike. It'll be intriguing not only for that reason, but also because of the nature of the opposition. Former Philadelphia Stars coach Jim Mora will lead New Orleans into the Vet Sunday, and Gary Papa has more from Louisiana on the man who almost led the Eagles.
The city of New Orleans is ready to explode after they beat the Browns last Sunday. And if they defeat the Eagles this week, they'll have a record that they've never had before, that is 2-0.
Hi, Gary. Man, nice to see you.
And it's mainly due to the former Philadelphia Stars head coach, Jim Mora.
we're making progress. We got a long way to go. We're not anywhere near where we need to be or want to be, but we're on the right track.
And that track takes Mora through Philadelphia, where he won a couple USFL championships when with the Stars. And he would have been head coach of the Eagles, but for a falling out with the owner, Norman Brayman. But he says, seriously, I don't think about what could have been.
People want me to think that, but that's not true. I don't feel that way. I just feel like this is a big game because it's the game we're playing this week.
But the temptation for comparison is there. And so far, out of 17 games, Buddy with the Eagles has won 5. Mora with the Saints has won 8. And the city of New Orleans is talking about finally having a winning football season. Here's cab driver Tom Clark.
Philadelphia had a chance to get Jim Mora. Do you think that was a mistake that the Eagles did not hire him as their head coach?
That was one of the mistakes that they made. The other mistake is they ain't got no quarterback.
We'll see who's laughing on Sunday, Jim Mora or Buddy Ryan.
Gary Papa, Channel 6 Action News, with the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And it's going to be quite emotional, as Gary predicts right there. Once again, the Saints are still a 1-point pick Sunday at the Vet.
I think Randall played pretty well last week.
I think he looked excellent. To heck with that cab driver.
Yeah, who is he? All right. A woman in South Africa has placed an unusual advertisement in her local newspaper. The unidentified woman took out the ad to thank the doctors and nurses who performed a recent vasectomy on her husband. Now, to anyone wondering why, the advertisement closed with the words, "Thanks from his loving wife Bertha and his children Phyllis, Fred, Victor, Robin, Joan, Michael, Bronwyn, Linda," don't look at your watch, David, "Reginald, Lucy, Betty, Peter, Edward, Sally, and Priscilla, and now you know why."
I want you to know that's what you're looking for right now.
And right now, during Chevrolet's Super September Sell Down, your Tri-State Chevy dealers continue to make the best deals on everything, from Berettas to Blazers. But the time is running out on super low 1.9 financing or up to $1,000 cash back on selected models. Because when September goes, the sell down is over. So see your Tri-State Chevy dealer today.
No matter how you drive your engine clean with Mobil Super Unleaded Detergent Gasoline. It can unclog fuel injectors and give your car a new injection of power. Drive your engine clean with Mobil Super Unleaded, high octane, with a plus.
Get a free Eagles glass with every fill-up of 8 gallons or more of Mobil Super Unleaded Plus.
These days, there's no shortage of money. The question is, what to do with it? Well, the Wall Street Journal has some ideas. Each day, the Journal brings you a wealth of information about investing, saving, taxes, real estate, the whole spectrum of personal financial management. In fact, the Journal is a must for anyone with an interest in money, because while there's plenty of it around, unfortunately, it doesn't come with instructions.
How do most Philadelphians feel about their copiers? Don't take it out in the machines. Service is the problem. Call Select Copy. We sell business machines and expert service that actually keeps them running. Call Select Copy right now and save up to 25% on any copier.
Sure, kick a guy when he's down.
Returning to our Constitution Day coverage right now, if you weren't at Penn's Landing tonight for the fireworks and the bridge lighting, well, the next best place to be was on the other side of the Delaware River. New Jersey correspondent Nora Mushanek is now live on the Camden waterfront. Nora?
Jim, some would fight you and say this was the better view tonight. But regardless, behind me you see right now the Ben Franklin Bridge all lit up. And, of course, it stopped flashing 2 seconds before we went on the air. But all in all, it's been a great night here on the Jersey side of the river. And here's a little bit of what it looked like from here. This was the view from New Jersey as the sky over the Delaware River exploded with colors and sound. An appreciative crowd gathered along Camden's waterfront had a beautiful view of the newly lighted Ben Franklin Bridge, silhouetted by fabulous fireworks. What do you think of the fireworks?
Oh, I think it's beautiful.
Why? What do you like about it?
Well, just the color and the whole thing, the excitement. It's really fantastic.
Are they the best ones you've ever seen?
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
I don't know. Yes,
Plenty of them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is wonderful, exciting. Why? Why do you like it?
Oh, I don't know. I think it brings something special out of inside, I guess.
And as people of all ages from both sides of the river enjoyed the spectacular sight, Camden's mayor was beaming with pride.
With the bridge lighting, we just feel that we're a real part of this celebration, and I can just say that it's a real positive feeling.
Positive feelings all around here tonight. All in all, a great constitutional celebration on both sides of the river. Reporting live from Camden at the waterfront, I'm Nora Mushanek. Back to you, Jim.
Thank you very much, Nora. 200 years ago, George Washington called the signing of the Constitution in Philadelphia nothing short of a miracle. Well, Dave Roberts brought us another miracle tonight. The rain stopped at about 2 minutes to 10 and started again a couple of minutes after 11.
So all in the timing.
How did you arrange that?
How did I arrange that?
I want to know that.
I guess lots of prayers from all of the people in the Delaware Valley. Mark and Chris especially, and our group of people down there on that boat waiting. The skies did clear. We got in the light show. We got in the fireworks, and that's the important part. We did not get by the shower, thunderstorm activity, and the heavy rains that are on the way, so says AccuWeather. Harrisburg, 2 inches of rain. Pittsburgh, 2 inches of rain as that frontal system stationary at this hour remains over the area. Thunderstorm activity throughout Bradford and Allentown with over ½ inch of rain in both of those locations. So that system stays there. Storm center coming out of Indiana on into Ohio by tomorrow. Slowly makes its way on into the Delaware Valley, so a continuation of cloudy skies. The humidity stays with us, and the rain just continues to move on in. We're stuck in that pattern as the frontal system goes all the way down to Texas with some shower activity during the next 24 to perhaps 36-hour period. Once that system moves through, we have still another frontal system coming out of a storm center north of North Dakota and Minnesota with an intended cold front in that fashion, also moving in that direction. The 5-day forecast reflects that this system and the other system behind it probably be Tuesday by the time we get a decent amount of sunshine. Not a very pleasant weather picture. Look at this, 8 degrees way out there in Montana, Wisdom, Montana, 108 in DV. Quite a difference between the two. Hot spot and a cold spot for us, a wet spot. Storm center moving in our direction, thunderstorms overnight. People in low-lying areas, you could see some possible flooding in the morning. We expect to get anywhere from 1 to 2 inches of rain out of this system. So we are in for a SS, as we call it in the weather business, a soggy session. 69 degrees, that was the low. 81, that was our high today. The water temperature continues to rise. It's up to 76 degrees. The winds will be variable. Then they'll turn to the northeast come tomorrow, and they'll pick up 8 to 16 miles per hour. 11 o'clock readings, 69 degrees in the northeast, 73 outside the station, 72 Center City, 72 Airport, 72 Camden. Humidity, 97%, 29, 76. That's the spirit the barometer's falling tonight. We've got to post thunderstorms again, 65 to 70 degrees temperature range. Wet and cloudy and humid. When you start out in the morning, 69 degrees. We stay with the showers and humidity all day long. Cloud cover, 78 degrees. Not a pleasant day, cloudy and cooler. A high of only 68. On Saturday, the possibility of rain on Sunday and Monday, cloudy skies, 70, 72. Maybe some sunshine on Tuesday, 75 degrees. We're stuck in this system. Going to hang around for a few days, unfortunately. James?
And coming up tonight, a final look at a year's worth of memories when Action News continues.
200 years ago, our founding fathers gathered to write our ticket to freedom. 200 years later, the Pennsylvania Lottery presents US 200, a very different kind of ticket to freedom. $200,000 worth, instantly.
200,000?
Or you could win a free ticket that could get you up to $1 million Saturday night on live TV.
TV? It goes with your VCR.
Play US 200, the new $1 instant game. And since it's a free country, feel free to enjoy it however it suits you.
The controversy of Norman Mailer.
I say we dig 6 to heads. You're being set up.
The mystery of Ryan O'Neal.
Tim.
The intrigue of Isabella Rossellini.
Tell me the worst, dearest.
Last week, 2 people were murdered.
The power of Wings Hauser.
I want to see you die. I want to make you crazy.
Norman Mailer's explosive novel comes to the screen. Tough Guys Don't Dance, rated R.
Starts tomorrow. Consult your local newspaper for showtime.
The Municipal Utilities Authority wanted to dump sewage off the Cape May coast. So they asked Senator Jim Hurley's public relations firm to sell their dangerous plan. Hurley would get $120,000. We would get a poisoned shore. Hurley had a choice, $120,000 or safe beaches. Hurley took the money. Now we have a choice, Hurley or someone we can trust. Don Rainier for State Senate.
It may seem hard to believe, but today's climax to the We the People celebration caps off a string of events that stretch back an entire year. Unless you're one of the organizers getting ready to take a big breather, it may seem like just yesterday. Action News reporter Dave Frankel takes a look back tonight.
You know, as you look over the calendar for the past 12 months and look at all the We the People events, you realize it's been a heck of a year.
It all started 1 year ago today with the opening of the Miracle at Philadelphia exhibit at the Second Bank, and this was only the beginning. This spring, things really kicked into high gear. On May 1st, the Magna Carta came to Philadelphia. Thanks to Texas billionaire H. Ross Perot, we can all get a look at this 700-year-old document on which our own Constitution is based. This may be the most memorable picture of the bicentennial celebration. 200 years to the day after the Constitutional Convention convened, we marked the event with a spectacular opening ceremony that included a visit from Vice President George Bush. And what would an American celebration be without fireworks? This year's 4th of July Freedom Festival featured a display to make the Founding Fathers proud. July 16th brings the Congress back to Philadelphia after 200 years for a symbolic joint session to commemorate the great compromise that made the Constitution possible. Then, just a few days ago, Billy Penn made his long-awaited return to Philadelphia after a facelift courtesy of the people of the Delaware Valley. Of course, it all came to a dramatic climax today. Happy birthday to us, the people. Here's to 200 more. Dave Frankel, Channel 6 Action News.
Nightline is next on Channel 6. Action News continues tomorrow at 6 a.m. And then at noon with Chris Wagner, Robin Garrison, and Harry Martin. Now for Don Tollefson, Dave Roberts, the entire Action News team, and everyone here at Channel 6, I'm Jim Gardner. Have a good night tonight.